Hello everyone, well, recently I've been playing Streets of Rage 4 again on the PlayStation 4. But I was just thinking, I know there was alternatives, and I was thinking about an open source alternative called Beats of Rage. Well, it turns out that doesn't actually exist anymore now, but what came of Beats of Rage was a game engine called OpenBOR. So yeah, it's a 2D scrolling game engine, and as it turns out there's various games available for it. But I stumbled across a fan game called Streets of Rage X2, or was it 2X, but it's actually now called just Streets of Rage X. I was trying to work out how do I get this going because installation Linux didn't exactly seem straightforward. A lot of the guides were just saying, well, compile it. Yeah, could compile it, but I'm lazy. But as it turned out, there is an app image version of the game engine, so installation Linux was basically download it and run it. That simple. But looking at this page, I appreciate this in a different language though, but yeah, there is instructions on how to get it going in Ubuntu, and it does mention about Streets of Rage X. So it certainly seemed quite an intriguing game to try, because it looks very much a remake of the Streets of Rage 2 and 3 games. Now, Streets of Rage came out in the 1990s, or in fact the first game came out in 1991, and it was for the Sega Genesis, or Sega Mega Drive. But the first game does seem very stiff and slow, and we got no real sort of special moves. When you're playing as police officers, so you actually have backup in that, the squad car can fire rockets at the screen and clear out all the enemies. So yeah, that's okay. Then in the second game, you don't have the backup of the police, and you have to use your own special abilities. So that's where it became more of an enjoyable game. You were using your own skill there, and in fact making the game of what you wanted. But it still felt very stiff and slow, and that's where we come to Streets of Rage 3, where the pace of the game is considerably faster and you can run in it, which is a nice feature. And interestingly, a feature that's removed in Streets of Rage 4 for most of the characters. So yeah, the third game is definitely my favourite, and this came out in the latter end of the 16-bit era. So I'm not sure it really caught on that well, and it didn't help as well that the differences between the Japanese and American games were quite considerable, and that the American game definitely had its violence and, you could say, sexual themes turned down. And just looking at the differences on the first level, when this warehouse door, all jagged in Japanese, but no, it doesn't have that in the American. The female characters are wearing tights or trousers. And then you have the character Ash, who, what can we say? Very camp, or outright gay, I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, he's not present in the American version. Instead you get one of the Donovans, which is stronger and just a slight palette swap of the others. Anyway, talking about palette swaps, Blaze is wearing a completely different outfit. So I don't understand the differences there. But yeah, it's not just those either, you also have a considerable increase in the difficulty. And the Japanese very hard is more like the American easy, or between the easy and normal. So yeah, and you can't even complete the game on the American easy. I think it stops you at like level 5 or 6. So yeah, it's quite a considerable increase in the difficulty. The enemies are stronger, they're faster, there's fewer health items. So when it comes to Streets of Rage X, we have what is basically a remake of Streets of Rage 2 or 3, and you can choose which game you want to play. I opted to play the third one, and normally when I take a look at these games, I play them a bit beforehand, but this time around, it's my first time playing it. I went in with completely not knowing anything about it. I picked it up, and I'm playing it for the first time, and I have to say it's been quite an enjoyable game. They've taken some of the features of Streets of Rage 4, like the ability to keep hitting enemies over and over again, like chaining attacks or chaining special attacks, which does feel so satisfying just to beat up the enemies repeatedly. It's like a good form of stress relief. You can hit the characters at the edge of the screen. It sounds a weird feature, I know, but yeah, that feature isn't present in the older games, which does make it quite frustrating when the enemies walk slightly off screen and you can't quite get them. It's just like, get out here and fight me. You can play with a 16:9 aspect ratio, so it looks good on modern screens. The pace of the game is a lot faster, and they kept the speed of like the third one. You can run. It does feel very nice to play. And it's not just a complete like-for-like remake. They've given you extra abilities. I didn't even understand them at all when I was playing it, but I noticed there was other moves, like you could kick and block. I mean kick directly as the first move, not just as part of the sequential attack. The kick would be like sort of punch, punch, kick. No, you could just kick straight away, so yeah, that's slightly different on move. You can block straight away as well, so there's differences there. You have to bear with me on this, that it was my first time playing and I didn't really sort of understand these features and how necessary they would be, for example on like the bosses. So yeah, I didn't come off so well on the boss. Yeah, I died, was it a few times against Shiva the first time around. So. Yeah, that happened, but then I kind of got more of an idea of it sort of in the next time with like Rue and Bruce. So yeah, I came off right there. I have to say that the dance or club section in Streets of Rage X didn't seem quite as authentic or enjoyable as the original retro game of Streets of Rage 3. I don't know whether it was just like the lack of the strobe lighting, which I suppose I could understand. You don't necessarily want the strobe lighting going too much. That is a bit annoying perhaps in a way, but I don't know, it was like the music as well. It just didn't seem as bass. Yeah, it's sort of weird to describe, but I mean, otherwise it was playable. I mean, would I have known a difference if I was playing that for the first time? No, and it just seemed alright. And the boss at that stage, I was trying to think what the Japanese versions are called. Miss Quids would definitely know it and would be able to pronounce it, but yeah, I can see they've gone with the American or English names of Mona and Lisa. I will admit I hated those in the original game, and they take a little bit to understand their attack pattern. I'm sort of a bit more familiar with it now, but yeah, playing this game, it was definitely interesting, that attack was. And what is surprising though is when you get hit, bloody hell, the bounce back. What is it, like 2 or 3 times your height you're violently dropping from there? Whatever, anyway, it's a whole fantasy game. I mean, there's various other bits you could pick apart if you're going to say, oh, surely after punching that many people, your knuckles would be rather bare and bleeding, wouldn't they? Bare knuckles. But going back to the name of the Japanese version there. Yeah, anyway, it's all fantasy. It's all meant to be fun, and it's a good laugh, that was. What else really caught me out? On like the third stage, but it's good to see the recreation of the original part where it had the wind in it, the variable wind. It alters the jumping and throwing of the enemies. I'm not quite sure it was as strong as the original game was, but yeah, I can see the features there. But the walls section, well, I pretty much played it like I did the first time around with a game of dying over and over again, getting hit by that digger. It was very difficult to hear him coming. It took quite a bit of effort to sort of focus on listening for it. I'm sort of starting to think now how much of the differences I'm hearing on the audio side are just because of the small speakers on my computer compared to the much larger surround sound system I have downstairs. But I'm not sure entirely on that, but I definitely did sort of have more difficulty sort of hearing when that was coming, and that's sort of quite essential to understand because you have a much shorter duration to attack back. Look, as much as I'm sort of complaining about that section, it's not that I didn't hate it, it was just it's different and it's good to see a difference. I didn't necessarily want an exact recreation of the original game. It's good to have a new challenge to it. And that is what made it more fun to play. I only played up to the end of the 3rd level, which is against the robotic version of Axel, the robot called Break. But yeah, I'm certainly interested in playing the rest of the game, because I did find this quite an enjoyable game to play. And yeah, I appreciate it's a fan-made game. It is a recreation of the original games with a much more modern twist. They've taken features which have come out in the Streets of Rage 4, in that the gameplay is more reminiscent of Streets of Rage 4, but as I say, with the Streets of Rage 3 and 2 stages and artwork in there. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.